welcome to this deep dive. We're going to dive deep into this detox and healing blueprint that you sent us. It's quite a journey through nutrition and fasting. Even some pretty out there ideas. We're focusing on phase 2 this time around. It really gets into like the nitty gritty of the nutrition part. We're talking about like intermittent fasting and bulletproof coffee. Oh, and there's this pretty bold statement that like no food is 100% pesticide free, even organic stuff. But luckily, our expert is here to break it all down.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this blueprint is how it kind of builds on itself. Like it recognizes you've already got those 2 healthy meals a day down, and now it wants you to, level up to 1 meal a day, and then like a 24-hour water fast, 2-3 times a week.
Okay, so like full-on fasting a couple of times a week. I'm wondering, like, does the blueprint talk about any downsides to that? Like, could it be too much for some people?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it really emphasizes the importance of listening to your body. Like if you're going through a stressful period, maybe skip the fasting for a bit. It's interesting because it kind of like loops back to the stress management techniques from phase 1. So you're really working on like multiple levels of well-being all at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not just about, depriving yourself of food, but about being mindful of your overall state. Now, the blueprint also mentions this thing called autophagy. And I gotta admit, I kind of don't really get that one.
Oh, yeah. So autophagy. Basically, think of it as like your cell's way of spring cleaning. So when you're fasting, your body starts breaking down and recycling all these, older damaged cell components. And some experts even say that exercising in a fasted state can like boost this process, which could have, some anti-aging and disease prevention benefits.
Oh, wow. So working out on an empty stomach can actually be a good thing. But what about when you break a fast? I mean, I imagine there's a right way and a wrong way.
Absolutely. And the blueprint is very specific about this. It says you want to break a fast gradually with, nutrient-dense foods like fruits, avocado, fish, leafy greens. Apparently, the biggest mistake people make is just like diving headfirst into junk food after a fast.
Oh, yeah, I can see how that would be tempting. But why is that such a bad idea?
Well, I mean, think about it. You've just given your body, a break from processing food, and suddenly you hit it with this huge insulin spike, which basically just tells your body to store fat, which, totally defeats the purpose of fasting in the first place.
Right. It's like taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Now, another thing that caught my eye was this focus on micronutrients. Does the blueprint go beyond just, the usual eat your fruits and veggies advice?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
It actually points out that a lot of modern food practices lead to deficiencies in, these essential vitamins and minerals like magnesium, zinc, vitamins A, C, and D. So it's not just about eating fruits and veggies. It's about choosing the right ones and preparing them in a way that actually preserves those nutrients.
Okay, so it's like quality over quantity when it comes to produce. But then there's this whole thing about, no food being 100% pesticide free. Even like the organic stuff makes you wonder if it's even possible to eat clean these days.
Yeah, it's definitely a wake-up call. But, what's interesting is the blueprint doesn't freak out about it. It still says to buy organic whenever possible, but more importantly, to wash everything really well, like with a vinegar and baking soda solution. So it's more about, minimizing exposure, not aiming for some impossible perfection.
So practical steps, not fear-mongering. Now let's get into like the actual what to eat part. The blueprint talks about starchy and non-starchy vegetables. What's the deal with that?
Well, it really comes down to their impact on blood sugar and insulin. The blueprint says to prioritize those non-starchy veggies, like leafy greens, broccoli, peppers, while limiting the starchy ones like potatoes and corn to like 1 serving a day.
So are those starchy vegetables like bad for you?
Not necessarily. It's more that they have a higher glycemic index. So they cause a faster rise in blood sugar, and that triggers the release of insulin, which can lead to, fat storage.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not careful. So it's all about keeping those blood sugar levels stable to support your detox goals.
Okay, so strategic choices, not necessarily eliminating whole food groups. Any other tips on like how to prep our veggies to get the most out of them?
Yeah, the blueprint emphasizes preserving those nutrients. So things like steaming over boiling, eating raw when possible, and aiming for like al dente rather than mushy overcooked veggies.
Those are great tips. Now, onto something that really caught my eye. Bulletproof coffee. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. What is this stuff?
Okay, so imagine blending coffee with like a teaspoon of grass-fed butter and an oil with MCTs like coconut oil. That's bulletproof coffee in a nutshell.
Coffee with butter and oil. I gotta say, I'm intrigued, but like, why? Is this just some trendy thing, or is there, actual science behind it?
Well, the blueprint highlights its benefits, especially during those fasting periods. The idea is that those healthy fats provide sustained energy and like a feeling of fullness without spiking your insulin. So it's kind of like a secret weapon against those mid-morning cravings.
Okay, that makes sense. And speaking of cravings, I actually tried adding cacao, cinnamon, and clove to my bulletproof coffee. It's surprisingly good. My sister, she's a psychiatrist. She had a good laugh about it. She's a bit skeptical, but, I think I'm onto something here.
Well, your additions might actually have some benefits, too.
Yeah.
The blueprint talks about the omega-3s in grass-fed butter, and they can have a positive impact on, like, everything from blood pressure and cholesterol to even mood and potentially depression.
So I'm not just satisfying my taste buds, I'm potentially boosting my mood and, overall well-being. That's a win-win in my book. Now, what about other drinks? Does the blueprint say anything about tea?
Oh, it does, yeah. It recommends drinking at least 1 cup of tea a day, like green, black, or Earl Grey, because of their high antioxidant content.
Why those specific types? What's so special about them?
They're packed with antioxidants that help fight those pesky free radicals, those unstable molecules that can damage cells and contribute to aging. It's interesting because the blueprint also links stress to increased free radical production. So a daily dose of tea could be like a simple way to counteract that.
Okay, so tea as a stress-fighting, anti-aging elixir, I'm all for that. But for those who might not be familiar with free radicals, why should we care about them?
Imagine them as like little troublemakers in your body, wreaking havoc on your cells and DNA. This damage can lead to inflammation, premature aging, and even, chronic diseases like cancer. Antioxidants, on the other hand, they're like the protectors, neutralizing those free radicals and minimizing the damage.
So it's like this constant battle between the good guys and the bad guys happening at like a microscopic level in our bodies.
Exactly. And according to the research in the blueprint, regularly drinking tea can really help you win that battle. It's linked to a reduced risk of cancer, protection against DNA damage, and even lower blood pressure.
Wow, a simple cup of tea packing that much punch. I'm definitely going to be brewing more often. Now, I know we also need to talk about gut health, particularly prebiotics and probiotics. This seems to be a big theme in the blueprint as well.
Absolutely. It stresses the importance of a healthy gut for overall well-being.
But for those who might not be as familiar with, gut health, could you break down the difference between prebiotics and probiotics? They often get lumped together, but they have different roles, right?
Yeah, you got it. Think of prebiotics as like the fertilizer for the good bacteria in your gut, while probiotics are the actual good bacteria themselves, those live microorganisms that offer, a variety of health benefits.
So you need both for a thriving gut ecosystem. What kind of insights does the blueprint offer about these two?
Well, beyond the usual advice to eat fermented foods and fiber-rich fruits and veggies, it specifically highlights their importance for anyone who's taken antibiotics. Because, antibiotics can disrupt the gut microbiome, so replenishing those good bacteria is even more crucial.
That makes sense. Antibiotics are powerful, but they can sometimes wipe out the good with the bad. So prebiotics and probiotics are like reinforcements for your gut after a round of antibiotics. Now, there was one recommendation in the blueprint that might raise some eyebrows: avoiding wheat products. Why such a strict stance on wheat?
It's not so much about wheat itself being bad, but more about how it's processed in most modern food products. Refined wheat flour is stripped of its fiber and nutrients, so you're left with a product that's more likely to mess with your blood sugar and contribute to weight gain.
So it's not about demonizing wheat, but being mindful of the type and quality we consume. That's reassuring, because I'm a big fan of certain wheat products.
And you don't have to give them up entirely. The blueprint suggests replacing refined wheat products with healthier alternatives, like barley, wild rice, quinoa, and oats.
Those are all fantastic options. Speaking of healthy swaps, the blueprint also emphasizes the importance of nuts. What role do they play in this detox plan?
Nuts are like a nutritional powerhouse, packed with fiber, healthy proteins, and those all-important omega-3 fatty acids. The blueprint suggests incorporating them regularly, especially for those following a vegetarian or vegan diet.
So a handful of nuts a day can really go a long way. Now, there's this intriguing concept of seasonal eating that I've been hearing a lot about lately. The blueprint seems to be a big advocate for it. What's the rationale behind aligning our diets with the seasons?
It's all about maximizing flavor and nutrient content,
right,
while also minimizing environmental impact. The blueprint emphasizes that in-season produce is not only more delicious, but also more nutritious because it's allowed to ripen naturally, and it hasn't been subjected to long transportation or storage. Plus, it's a more sustainable way to eat.
That's fascinating. I've definitely noticed a difference in taste between in-season and out-of-season produce. But I never considered the nutritional and environmental aspects. It's amazing how interconnected everything is.
Exactly. And eating with the seasons naturally helps diversify your nutrient intake. Since different fruits and vegetables come into season at different times of the year,
It's like nature's way of ensuring we get a variety of nutrients throughout the year. Now, I love that the blueprint encourages us to get creative in the kitchen with spices and herbs. It seems to go beyond just adding flavor.
you're right. Spices and herbs are packed with antioxidants, they have anti-inflammatory properties, and they can even boost the immune system. The blueprint highlights some standouts, like rosemary, turmeric, parsley, coriander, basil, ginger, and thyme.
Those are some of my favorites. I love experimenting with different combinations. It's amazing how something as simple as adding spices can elevate both the flavor and the health benefits of a dish.
Absolutely. It's about making healthy eating enjoyable and sustainable.
And speaking of sustainable, the blueprint recommends using fasting tracker apps like Simple, intermittent fasting. I can see how technology can play a helpful role in, keeping track of fasting windows and progress.
Yeah, it's all about finding tools that support your journey and make it easier to stick with your goals.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the science behind fasting and autophagy to specific dietary recommendations, and even like the power of tea and spices.
It's just a glimpse into the world of detox and healing. But hopefully it's given you some food for thought.
Definitely. Before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with something to ponder. The blueprint mentions how our modern lifestyles and environmental factors can contribute to toxic buildup in our bodies. What are some simple changes you can make in your daily life to minimize those exposures and support your body's natural detoxification processes? We'll be back after a short break to delve deeper into this fascinating topic. Stay tuned.
I was thinking about those toxic exposures we talked about earlier. It's kind of overwhelming, right? All the potential toxins we encounter every day.
It's true, there's a lot out there. But the good news is our bodies are really good at filtering out a lot of it.
So we're not just sitting ducks. Not at all. And the blueprint gives us some great strategies for, helping those natural detox processes along. It comes down to, minimizing exposure where we can and giving our bodies the tools to do their job.
Okay, so break it down for us. What can we actually do?
Well, choosing organic foods is a great start, but we talked about how nothing's completely pesticide-free. Filtering your water is another big one, getting rid of those impurities.
I've also heard that even our cleaning products can be a problem. Adding to that toxic buildup, does the blueprint address that?
Oh, absolutely. It really pushes for swapping those conventional cleaners for, more natural, non-toxic ones. It's amazing how many simple swaps we can make that actually make a difference.
So being mindful of what we bring into our homes, what we expose ourselves to, what about helping our bodies with the detox process itself? Like, beyond just minimizing exposure, what can we do?
That's where the basics come in. Hydration, exercise, sleep. Drinking lots of water helps flush out toxins. And exercise gets your blood pumping, you sweat, which also helps with detox.
And sleep. I always knew it was important, but how does that fit into detox? Is it just about giving our bodies a rest?
It's more than just rest. Sleep is when our bodies do a lot of their repair and rejuvenation. And yeah, that includes those key detox processes. The blueprint really stresses that prioritizing sleep is just as important as anything else.
It makes sense giving our bodies the downtime to, cleanse and heal.
Exactly. The whole body approach, taking everything into account.
Now, I know this blueprint is mainly about nutrition, but I remember it touching on stress management too. Is that because stress somehow impacts detoxification?
It definitely does. Chronic stress just messes with our bodies in so many ways. And yet it can even impair detoxification. The blueprint wants us to, incorporate stress-reducing practices into our routine.
So it's not just about feeling calmer. It actually affects our physical health, like our body's ability to function at its best.
Exactly. When we're stressed, our bodies release hormones like cortisol, and that can actually interfere with detoxification.
So managing stress isn't just for our mental and emotional well-being. It's also crucial for our physical health and those natural detox processes. It's all connected, isn't it?
It really is. It highlights that mind-body connection, how our mental, emotional, and physical health are all tied together.
Now, one thing that jumped out at me was the blueprint's emphasis on individualizing our approach to detox. Does it acknowledge that what works for one person might not work for another?
Absolutely. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. It encourages us to pay attention to our bodies and adjust things based on, our own needs and responses.
So it's more like guidelines, not strict rules.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you and remembering that you are the expert on your own body.
I love that. It puts us in the driver's seat of our own health journey. But with so much information, so many potential changes, it's easy to get overwhelmed, right? Does the blueprint address that?
It does, and it really emphasizes talking to a healthcare professional, before making any big changes to your diet or lifestyle.
That's a good point. There's so much info out there, it's hard to know what's right for you.
For sure. Every individual is different, and there might be underlying health conditions or medications to consider. A qualified professional can help you personalize things and make sure you're approaching detox safely.
It's good to know that this blueprint isn't about going it alone. It's more of a collaborative approach. Now, what about some of the challenges people might face when trying to actually implement this blueprint? I imagine it's not always easy to stick with such big changes.
You're right. A common obstacle is, that temptation to fall back into old habits, especially when you're surrounded by unhealthy food, or in social situations that revolve around eating and drinking.
Yeah, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or discouraged, especially at first when those cravings hit.
Definitely. Change your heart, especially when it comes to ingrained habits of what everyone else is doing. But the blueprint has some good tips for staying motivated.
Okay, let's hear them. How do we make these changes stick?
Well, it really emphasizes setting realistic goals.
Yeah.
Don't try to change everything overnight. Start small, gradually incorporate things. It's like building a foundation, brick by brick.
I love that analogy. It takes the pressure off.
Another helpful tip is to find a support system, whether it's a friend, family member, or an online community. Having people who get it can make a big difference.
Yeah, it's powerful having people in your corner cheering you on.
Absolutely. And don't forget to celebrate your successes along the way. Every small step forward is a victory.
That's so true. We often focus on the end goal and forget to appreciate the progress we're making.
Exactly. Give yourself credit.
Now, I know this blueprint is about individual health, but I'm curious about, the bigger picture. Like, how do our dietary choices affect the environment? Is there a connection there?
You've hit on a key point. The blueprint does talk about sustainability and how our food choices impact the environment. It highlights how animal agriculture contributes to greenhouse gas emissions and deforestation.
So our choices at the dinner table can have consequences for the planet, too.
Exactly. The blueprint encourages us to be mindful of that impact and make more sustainable choices whenever possible.
What are some ways to do that?
Choosing locally sourced, seasonal produce is a great start. It cuts down on transportation emissions and supports local farmers. The blueprint also suggests reducing meat consumption and trying plant-based proteins more often.
It's empowering knowing that our choices can make a difference.
It's all about recognizing that we have that power.
Now, before we go to the final part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with something to think about. The blueprint lays out a specific detox plan, but a lot of these principles can be applied more broadly, right?
I agree. Ideas like minimizing toxins, supporting our natural detox processes, and making mindful choices, those are relevant to all parts of our lives.
It's like shifting our mindset from reactive to proactive, not just dealing with health issues, but actively creating a life that supports well-being.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about becoming more conscious and intentional, recognizing that small changes add up over time.
And realizing that we have the power to shape our own health and well-being. It's a journey, isn't it?
It is. It's about embracing that journey and trusting ourselves to make choices that align with our values.
Well, we've covered a lot in this deep dive. From the specifics of this detox plan to broader lifestyle choices, and even that connection between personal health and planetary health. I'm curious to hear your final thoughts on this blueprint. What stands out to you as the most impactful takeaway? It's pretty amazing how this blueprint connects all these different parts of well-being, like the food, the stress, even our connection to the environment.
Yeah, it's definitely a holistic approach. And I think for me, what really stands out is this focus on getting back to nature.
Ah, yes, the healing power of nature. I got to admit, I sometimes forget about that, like how important it is for us. We get so busy, so caught up in, our screens and everything, that we kind of lose touch with that connection.
It happens to the best of us, especially these days. Right. But all the research shows that spending time in nature is, incredibly beneficial. It lowers stress, improves mood, even boosts your immune system.
It's like we're designed to be in nature, We evolved surrounded by it, and now we spend most of our time stuck inside.
Exactly. Nature has this peace and quiet that's hard to find in our, crazy tech-filled world. The blueprint reminds us that it's not just about what we put in our bodies, but also the environments we put ourselves in.
So it's like detoxing our surroundings, too.
Exactly. Creating a home and a workspace that has, elements of nature can really make a difference.
Okay, so what are some easy ways to do that? Like things people can do right away without, redesigning their whole house?
Well, even just having plants around can help. In your home, your office, wherever, they clean the air and just bring a sense of calm and life to the space.
Yeah, I always feel better when I'm around plants. It's like bringing a little bit of the outdoors inside. What about natural light? I think the blueprint mentioned that too.
Oh, yeah, natural light is so important. It helps regulate our circadian rhythm, which affects our sleep and everything else. Making sure you get enough sunlight during the day can improve your mood, your energy, even how well you sleep.
So catching some rays isn't just fun, it's actually good for you. I think a lot of us take natural light for granted, especially in the winter.
It's easy to do.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to touch on one last thing, something that really stuck with me. The blueprint says that, detox and healing is a journey, not a destination.
That's such an important point. There's no quick fix when it comes to health. It's about making those choices day after day that support your body and mind.
And those choices might change, right? As we change and our lives change.
Absolutely. It's about listening to your body, paying attention to how you feel, and adjusting as needed.
That reminds me of the whole bio-individuality thing, how everyone's different and what works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly. It's about honoring your own unique needs and preferences. There's no right or wrong way, as long as you're tuning into your body and doing what feels good for you.
So as we close out our deep dive into this blueprint, I want to leave our listeners with this. We've talked about a lot of information, a lot of tools, but ultimately the power to make a real change comes from within.
It's about taking control of your own health and recognizing that you have the ability to shape your own journey.
It's about trusting your intuition and making choices that align with what you want, what you believe in, and remembering that even small changes over time can make a big difference.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into detox and healing. We hope you learned something and feel ready to start your own journey toward a healthier, more vibrant you.
This has been The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.